Hey there, deep divers. It's Julie B, and today I'm diving into the dramatic aftermath of Nick's betrayal and June's daring new plan to attack Gilead in Season 6, Episode 7 of The Handmaid's Tale. As we barrel toward the end of the series, all the major characters are finding themselves at a crossroads. Do they stand up for what's right and risk their lives to join the fight against Gilead? Or do they continue to support Gilead out of pure self-interest and/or religious dogma? The answer to this question is a true test of their characters, and it depends on whether or not their eyes have been fully opened to reality and whether they have enough courage and conviction to do the right thing. I'll break down how each character is failing that test, passing it, or seemingly on their way to passing it. I'll also assess the character's ability to accurately see reality. For instance, June's blinders regarding Nick were suddenly ripped off in the previous episode, and Lawrence's blinders regarding his reform plan were ripped off recently as well. Meanwhile, Lydia's eyes seem to be slowly opening, while Serena is still willfully blind as of this episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first character in question is Nick. He is failing in epic fashion, a devastating disappointment to June, as he has betrayed her by revealing Mayday's plan to Commander Wharton. Episode 6 ended with June and Nick in a closet overhearing Wharton telling Serena about it, and Episode 7 picks up right there. Nick tells June that Janine was taken and he'll find out where, explaining that Wharton wanted the place gone and he never said the girls had anything to do with it. June asks if they're dead, and Nick just responds, "I didn't think he would do that," bowing his head in shame. In other words, yes. And interspersed with this scene, there's a horrifying scene in which guardians burst into Jezebel's, force all the women against a wall at gunpoint, and massacre everyone in cold blood. Except for Janine, who a guardian pulls away as she pleads with them not to hurt her friends, but she's forced to watch helplessly as they're slaughtered. Janine has suffered so much trauma, and she now sees the cold, hard reality of Gilead by this point. Her naivete and positivity are long gone, and we've seen that reflected in the irreverent way in which she speaks to Aunt Lydia, and the way she refused to be polite to Naomi Putnam, the woman who took her child. But getting back to June's own awakening, she asks Nick to take her back and sits in awkward silence in the back seat, then demands that he stop the car and let her out early when they get close to the border so she'll walk the rest of the way. Nick follows her, saying, "You know you never cared what I did when it helped you. I killed those two guardians to protect you and your friend and your husband, and those men were just doing their jobs. One was 19 years old. You pretend like I'm not a commander or an eye unless it suits you." And he has a point here. But June says she never pretended, and he responds, "Well, you didn't face it, and now you have to." This is exactly what I've been talking about in my videos, starting with my first deep dive on the first 3 episodes of Season 6. June has just disregarded the fact that Nick was an eye for Gilead, now a commander, and the implications of that reality. This is the first of several conversations in this episode that validate my argument about Nick, and about June's myopic view of his character. As I explained in my episode 6 deep dive, June has been blinded by her love for Nick and unable to see him for who he really is. The fact of the matter is that being an eye and a commander makes Nick complicit in Gilead's horrific human rights violations against women. Nick got swept up in the uprising against the U.S. that formed Gilead, participating in the coup. He later came to regret this and has always been disgusted by Gilead's abuses against women. But he once admitted to June that he was a nobody before Gilead, that he had no purpose, and she wouldn't have even noticed him. I think Gilead filled a void in his life and made him feel important. Getting back to this scene, June tells Nick, "You gave up those women to save yourself." And yes, that's exactly what he did. As I've said, it seems clear that Nick was afraid of Wharton, his father-in-law, who had been enraged and could have easily had him executed. Nick counters, "We all want to save ourselves. We're fucking human. That's what we do." And that's true, but Nick is just making an excuse for his blatant selfishness. Yes, we all have a primal survival instinct that's selfish, but that hasn't stopped June and the Mayday group from risking their lives to try to save women and children and trying to take down Gilead itself. June and other refugees could have easily just forgotten about that place and pursued their own self-interest, but instead they're risking their lives to fight Gilead and save others who are trapped and suffering as they suffered. And even plenty of people still trapped or stuck in Gilead have also risked their lives to help others. Even Commander Lawrence has done helpful things in previous seasons that were of no personal benefit to himself and put himself at risk, like when he helped June smuggle her baby out of Gilead and tried to help June herself get out. But June chose to stay and fight for Hannah. By contrast, as I've been discussing in my previous videos, Nick has only ever helped June because he loves her, which is actually selfish, wanting to protect the person he happens to love and do favors for her. But he's never undertaken a courageous act to help anyone else on his own. June's perspective has been clouded by her trauma in Gilead, but the blinders have now been taken off, and she tells Nick, "You're just like them." And he doesn't even deny it. He says, "And you love me, so what does that make you?" Then he tries to move toward her, but she shuts him down and walks away. I'll give Nick points for honesty here again, at least. He doesn't deny that he's just like the other commanders. He's literally in a position of leadership in a dystopian regime that enslaves women. There's no glossing over that. But he's calling June out on the fact that she loves him regardless of his complicity in Gilead. And to be sure, June has definitely compromised her own convictions by engaging in this relationship with him, but this was a result of her trauma. And I never expected him to point the finger back at her like that and cast aspersions onto her. It was extremely cold. As a prisoner in Gilead, June was just trying to survive and grasp onto whatever modicum of happiness and joy that she could find in this hellscape. Human beings need love to survive and will do whatever they can to seek it, even in the darkest of places, especially there, where we need love the most. When June admits to Luke that she told Nick about Mayday's plan, which is how it got leaked, he lashes out at her in a harsh way. She says that she thought she could trust Nick, and Luke retorts, "He's a commander in Gilead. He doesn't want us to win. The only thing he ever cared about is you, and because of that you're going to run around like he's some hero, like he's this savior that you've been pining for ever since you got back? You think I don't see it?" Crying, June says she doesn't know what to do, and he snaps, "Don't be in love with an effing," and I can't say the word here, but it's a World War II German soldier. This video could get blocked if I actually use the word, but I think you know what I mean. This echoes what June's mother had said early in the season. She called Nick the same thing. Luke isn't being fair or empathetic to June here, but he's right about Nick. Once again, Luke just illustrated one of the points I've been making in my videos throughout this season. Nick has only ever cared about one person, and that's June. He doesn't lift a finger or take a risk for the rest of the country's enslaved women and kidnapped children. And he's never really shown any interest in helping Mayday or the Americans in exile. He only agreed to work with Tuello in return for his protection of June. He seemingly has no strong conviction, love for her, and also his desire to feel important and valued by this society. Remember, he was directionless until Gilead, and being June's hero also gave him purpose. June latched onto him because he was kind to her. He literally was her savior on multiple occasions, so that's how she viewed him. She couldn't see that he wasn't willing to be anyone else's savior, that he's propping up this fascist regime. He's been trying to have his cake and eat it too, trying to keep his status secure in Gilead and maintain his own safety while also protecting the woman he loves, but no one else. And another conversation in this episode also validates the argument I've been making about Nick. While the Mayday people grumble about June, blaming her for their mission's failure, Moira reassures her. June tells Moira that she trusted him for so long that she forgot who he was, and Moira responds that Nick never gave her any reason not to trust him, that she was stuck in Gilead, being SA'd, and he was kind to her, helping her survive. Indeed, Nick literally saved June's life more than once, and his love helped her survive on an emotional level, too. As I said earlier, human beings have a basic need for love, And while she was living in survival mode, she latched onto any modicum of love and joy she could find, even if it was just a few fleeting minutes together once in a long while. As a handmaid, June was being SA'd on a monthly basis. Just try and wrap your head around that. So sleeping with Nick when she first got together with him gave her back some semblance of bodily autonomy, at least temporarily. She took the lead, and he didn't do anything until she initiated the entire encounter. And June was suffering not only from SA abuse and physical abuse, but even worse than that for her was the emotional pain of missing her daughter Hannah, who had been torn away from her. Recall this scene. Nick took June to visit Hannah, which gave her great joy for the brief time when she got to see her, but having to say goodbye was devastating. Nick comforted her when she had no other source of support. After Nick and June had their own child, he helped her by keeping Fred Waterford from following her, while Mayday smuggled the baby out of Gilead. And the intent was for June to also escape as well, but she chose to stay behind and continue her quest to one day get Hannah out too. These are just a few examples of how Nick became June's hero, and she's been looking at him through the lens of her trauma, even after escaping. In her eyes, she could always count on him to be a hero. But this scene between Nick and Rita is more proof of how myopic June's perspective of Nick has really been. Rita asks Nick if June got out okay, and he says she did. Then Rita tells him that they'll see each other again someday, sensing his sadness, but he bitterly responds that he doesn't think so because she thinks he's a monster. Rita tries to reassure him that she's known him a long time and he's a good man, but Nick actually says something very self-aware here. He says simply, "Not without her." Indeed, June made him a good man, only for her. He only did courageous things for her sake, because of his love for her. He helped her and people she cared about for that reason, not because he wanted to do the right thing. Then Rita cuts to the heart of the matter when she tells him that he is a good man and they were friends way before June came along. But he coldly responds, "We were never friends. I was afraid of you. You were afraid of me. We would have crossed each other in a second if it helped us to survive." Indeed, many people trapped under Gilead's regime are naturally focused on their own survival and would throw each other under the bus if it means maintaining their own safety. Rita tells Nick that might have been true before they knew each other, but not now. And here, it's clear that losing June for good has turned Nick completely cynical. He tells Rita, "You're just saying that because you want me to get your family out." And this is where Rita asks the million-dollar question of Nick. Don't you want to be a man who does the right thing? And the answer to that question is no. He doesn't care about that. In response, he plays the helpless victim here and says, "I don't get to have what I want." It sounds so childish. If Nick can't be with June, which is what he's always wanted, then he figures he can just abandon the notion of doing the right thing altogether. Because it was never about doing the objectively right thing anyway. It was just about trying to save this one woman he loved. I don't think Nick is a bad person at heart. He probably did want to be a man who does the right thing, but since he can't have the life he wants with June, then he's giving in to a victim mentality and giving up on being the kind of man who does what's right. Doing what's right in Gilead is a life-threatening endeavor, and Nick has only ever had the courage to take this kind of risk for June's sake. His love for her made him a better person, and now that he's lost her for good, he's done taking even small risks to help victims of Gilead like Rita. So he's reneging on his promise to her that he would get her family out of Gilead. She's devastated and says, "I was counting on you," but he coldly replies, "This is Gilead. The only person you should count on is yourself." So this is a cold, hard dose of reality for Rita, and it will be a motivator for her to join the revolution after all. Her eyes have now been opened to Nick's true nature and the fact that if she wants the chance to get her family back, she needs to take matters into her own hands and join the fight. And for Nick, it's the final nail in the coffin of his character, I think. He's given up any pretense of being a good man now and giving in to the darkness of Gilead. He'll probably never be comfortable with its abuses against women, but without June's love to motivate him, He no longer feels any incentive to push back against this place anymore. So if we're keeping score, Nick's character has failed his test, but remarkably, even after June's betrayal, Luke is passing his own test. While initially he wasn't empathetic to June, once he cools down, his attitude changes. June says she didn't consider how much she could be hurting him, and he acknowledges that she had gone through so much, so he understands. She tells him not to make excuses for her or stay with him out of pity, that she wants him to be happy and be with someone who deserves him. Luke responds that he should want to leave her, but he can't, and she says she can't either. June wonders if Hannah is the only reason they're still together, and Luke says no. He still loves her, and I think June loves him too. Unfortunately, her trauma clouded her perspective, and her love for Nick became stronger than her love for Luke. But now that her eyes have been opened, she and Luke might be able to recover from this after all. This is the start of June passing her ultimate test, seeing the reality of who Nick actually is. But she was about to fail the next part of her test by giving up on Mayday and running away, until someone shows up who's passing his own ultimate test, Commander Lawrence. Tuello escorts Lawrence to the Mayday base of operations, as he's committed to finding another way to kill the Warhawk commanders and take down Gilead after the Jezebel's plan was thwarted. Lawrence had believed he could fix Gilead from within through reform, as he promised his late wife he would do, but his eyes have now been opened to the reality that reform is futile, and the only answer is revolution. He finds June packing to leave, and with his usual bluntness, he tells her that he always thought she was an idiot for trusting Nick. He says he was always selective in what he told Nick, and he makes a crack at June, letting Nick's smoldering gaze obscure her better judgment. Yet another reference to the fact that June's vision had been clouded by her love for Nick, as I've been saying all season in these deep dives. Lawrence tells June he wants her to get Mayday to find another way to kill those commanders. When June responds that they don't want to hear anything from her, he asks when has that ever stopped her? She doesn't usually give up this easily. Then he knows exactly what buttons to push. He brings up Serena, saying Serena never quit, and she clawed her way back into power, about to become Mrs. Wharton, Queen of Gilead. June claims not to care what Serena does, but that's clearly not true, and he calls her on it. He says, when Serena's broadcast all around the world in a beautiful little wedding dress, surrounded by handmaids in their beautiful little red veils, staring at the floor because they're not allowed to meet her eyes, that's gonna sit right with you? That's the legacy? That's the way June Osborne's last chapter in Gilead ends? Now that's a persuasive argument. All of this has to strike a nerve in June, as her legacy is very important to her. The oppression of those handmaids is deeply personal to her, and she's disgusted with the fact that Serena hasn't changed, essentially about to become anointed as Queen of Gilead, as Lawrence says. But June tells him that her last chapter in Gilead ended when the women at Jezebel's died, and Lawrence responds that Janine's not dead, but she probably wishes she were, because the despicable Commander Bell made her his handmaid. He's so smart to bring this up as well because this also hits a nerve. Lawrence knows how much June cares for Janine. And all of Lawrence's manipulative tactics work. June has a sudden brainstorm and asks if he had said there were going to be handmaids at the wedding. So she rises to the occasion and passes her ultimate test as well. She comes up with a new plan of attack on Gilead via Serena's wedding and presents it to Mayday. Knowing full well what a narcissist Serena is, June explains that Serena will put on a huge show, invite everyone important, micromanage every detail, and while she's planning her perfect wedding, they'll be planning too. Lawrence points out that Gilead just had a big win with the Jezebel's bust, leaving them arrogant and complacent. June explains that if they use the handmaids, no one will suspect them because they had nothing to do with Jezebel's. June and Moira will be able to dress as handmaids and hide in plain sight, because the handmaids at the wedding will be a giant, anonymous group who are trained not to talk. June will smuggle in switchblades to the handmaids at the Red Center, and Mayday can use the bombs they had already prepared for Gilead. Lawrence notes that with chaos, panic, and confusion in the city, it will be a perfect time to bring in the Mayday military. And with so many commanders in one place, Gilead will beef up security. June says Serena will insist on extra guardians at the wedding and pull them from all over the city and the border, leaving Boston more unprotected. They can use all of their friends, anyone who hates Gilead and has been screwed over by them. And as June is saying this, we see an overlay shot of Lawrence delivering a briefcase to Rita, then shots of wedding cake. So after Nick has gone back on his promise to get Rita's family out, she's ready to join the fight too, and apparently will drug the wedding cake. It's clear that her eyes have now been opened to reality and she's passing her ultimate test too. June knows Serena's biggest Achilles heel is her narcissism, giving her a blind spot for them to exploit. June explains, Serena will make sure all eyes stay on her. Her narcissism brought down one nation and is about to bring down another. Because those commanders and those wives are going to be so busy eating and dancing and having the time of their lives that they will never see us coming. June has intimate knowledge of the way Serena's mind works, so she's spot on with this analysis. Serena has been high on herself from day one, with delusions of grandeur, believing she's God's chosen one, wanting to be worshipped and fawned over. Remember what she wrote in her journal that June found in episode 6? Her narcissism and megalomania were on full display as she wrote, "Some people called me the mother of the revolution. I was the voice for a return to faith and to a society where women were revered for their natural role as mothers and nurturers. The handmaids, though their role was misunderstood by many, were a vital part of that mission. There were sacrifices to be made, not just by the handmaids, but by all of us who believed in Gilead. We were willing to make the hard choices, to endure the scrutiny and the misunderstanding from those who failed to see the necessity of this new system. Thus, this window into Serena's mind through her journal proves that she hasn't truly changed. Not enough, anyway. She still believes that the handmaid system was justified, that she helped to create a society that reveres women as mothers and nurturers. Imagine believing that Gilead, reveres women? After everything Serena has seen, and even after she herself has fallen victim to disgusting abuse, oppression, and mutilation, cutting off her finger for reading because she's a woman. And yet, Serena remains delusional, and her narcissism is what rules her character. As June says, Serena's narcissism already brought down one nation when Serena helped to inspire the revolution against the US. That narcissism blinded her to the implications of her dangerous ideas, the human toll they would take on women once Gilead took over. Now her narcissism is what's driving her to plan this extravagant wedding, recklessly pulling security resources away from the border and the rest of Boston just to attend her lavish festivities, fit for a queen. And this leaves Boston vulnerable to Mayday's attack. Now, referring back to that journal passage again, it's clear that unlike June, Lawrence, and Rita, Serena's eyes have not been open to reality. Not yet, anyway, but I think that's coming. And she's got a long way to fall from the delusional pedestal she's proudly standing atop right now. At a bridal shower, the commander's wives speak ill of New Bethlehem's slightly more modern policies, wondering if the refugees even follow God's word, and not trusting that it's safe there with them around. Serena points out that Naomi's husband, Lawrence, is chiefly responsible for the success of New Bethlehem. Then some of the other wives say that their husbands believe his ideas are too radical and reckless. Defending New Bethlehem, Serena interrupts another woman who's about to parrot her husband and asks her, "And what do you say? What are your hopes and dreams for New Bethlehem?" She's talking to the wrong person here. These women have been brainwashed not to have minds of their own, just to adopt the opinions of their husbands, so the concept of thinking for themselves seems to be alien to them. But should this really be such a surprise for Serena? This is the natural result of the patriarchal system that she championed herself from the beginning. Again, she's always been so blind to the implications of her own views. But moving on, Serena says she will be opening a fertility center in New Bethlehem, which means more healthy children, asking, "Isn't that what this was all about to begin with?" Naomi says yes, but the present system, meaning the handmaid system, works. Serena still maintains that there will be no handmaids in New Bethlehem, except the ones who will retire and work at the fertility center. But the wives tell Serena that no one will want the handmaids around, and they just want them to move on and get out of their sight. Serena counters, "Move on to where? To do what exactly? These women are holy vessels. They carried our children. Where would you suggest that they spend their retirement?" But by her own recent admission to Lydia, Serena herself didn't give this matter any consideration, despite her vision of the handmaids as holy vessels. Serena has gotten on board with Lydia's proposal for the handmaids, but let's not pretend that she came to care about the fate of these handmaids on her own. Lydia only just recently asked her if she had ever even given a thought to what would become of handmaids when she championed this system for Gilead, and she had admitted that she never thought about it, that she was only thinking about how unhappy she was and that she wanted a child, an unbelievably twisted level of selfishness. And Serena never said a word in the defense of handmaids until Lydia's proposal, so let's not give her too much credit here. Sending them to retire in New Bethlehem was Lydia's idea, and the way Lydia grilled Serena on her self-centered mentality probably gave her a guilty conscience which she's now trying to assuage. Otherwise, I doubt she'd even be pushing this issue now. She'd just continue to avoid handmaids as much as she can, out of sight, out of mind. Deep down, on some level, I think she knows this system is wrong, but she's still rationalizing it, even in her journal, to ease her conscience. Later, Serena is sulking over the dismissive mockery of the wives regarding her ideas about New Bethlehem. Her narcissistic ego is wounded. She tells Wharton that the commanders don't support their ideas for reform either. He says that they need to treat her with respect and be reminded who they're dealing with, and Serena replies that a proper wedding will remind them. Clearly, she wants all of Gilead to be forced to kiss the ring and anoint her as their queen. Wharton says that means they can't get married in New Bethlehem, and Serena is only too happy to agree now. They need a grand celebration fit for the highest commander, with all the other commanders and their wives, and econo men and women, she says. So when her pride is at issue, now she's just as pretentious and dismissive of New Bethlehem as the wives who said their dress shops were too tacky for a bridal gown. Now that her ego took a hit, suddenly the gorgeous locale of New Bethlehem isn't good enough for her wedding. When Wharton adds handmaids to the list of those who should attend, Serena bristles at the thought, and her smile disappears, but he says it wouldn't be a traditional Gilead wedding without the whole community, including handmaids, a show of unity with everyone represented and the two of them at the top. That image makes her warm right up to the idea, and she smugly stands and contemplates it. He's misleading her, though, making it sound as if the two of them will be on equal footing at the top. That's not the case at all. This is still Gilead, but he'll say anything to convince her to marry him so he can benefit from her social status, ability to have children, and skill at normalizing foreign relations. As for bristling at the thought of handmaids being in attendance, that part is interesting. In Serena's journal, of course, she still justifies the handmaid system as a necessity when they created it, yet she's uncomfortable with the idea of handmaids at her wedding. Again, deep down, she seems to know the system is wrong. And she doesn't want handmaids in New Bethlehem, believing fertility clinics can produce enough healthy children there. So would she want to push for the abolition of the system in all of Gilead anytime soon, if fertility centers are a viable alternative? I don't think her narcissism will even allow her to admit this to herself, that the handmaid system might not be a necessity, because it was partly her brainchild, as she indicated in her journal. Perhaps Serena's eyes are at least starting to open just a bit regarding handmaids' rights at the present time, at least the way retired handmaids should be treated, but she's far from having the kind of awakening that Lawrence and June have had, and that Lydia is poised to have. The key to Lydia's awakening is, of course, Janine, whom she regards like a daughter. In the wake of the Guardians' massacre at Jezebel's, Lydia visits the place and cries in despair, believing that Janine is dead. Later, Aunt Phoebe informs her that Commander Bell saved Janine from the brothel and chose her to be his handmaid, and Lydia weeps tears of joy and gratitude. But when she goes to Belle's house and asks how Janine is adjusting, Belle makes the ominous statement, "We've been working on her adjustment all morning. She's quite the firecracker." Belle won't let Lydia see her or let Janine go to the wedding, saying she's very tired and not ready for public viewing at the moment. Looking up as she leaves, Lydia sees Janine in a window with her face beaten up as she's pulled away by Belle's wife. And of course, Lydia is horrified. Janine is Lydia's Achilles heel, and as I said in a previous deep dive, her love for Janine will likely be the key to her finally joining the side of the revolution against Gilead. But at this point, she's still standing in the way, and Lawrence knows it, so he makes arrangements to get rid of her in advance of Mayday's plot for Serena's wedding. He sets up a meeting for Lydia in D.C. where they'll hear her plan for retired handmaids to work at the fertility center. Meanwhile, Aunt Phoebe asks a guardian to investigate a break in a fence to distract him. Then she opens Lawrence's car trunk and welcomes June and Moira, saying, "Let the revolution begin." So Phoebe has been working with the resistance and coordinating the Mayday plan with the handmaids at the Red Center. She tells June and Moira that the handmaids and the Martha's network are on board with the plan, but Janine doesn't know about it, and Belle isn't allowing her to come to the wedding. June says she'll take care of it. She won't leave Janine behind or let Belle off the hook for his abuse of her. As they nervously settle in, Moira looks to June for some inspirational words, and June recites a conventional prayer, then closes with a highly unconventional prayer to God to give them the strength to murder all of those vile men. So, that's my breakdown of the ways all our characters are being tested at this pivotal turning point as we near the close of the Handmaid's Tale series. Whose eyes are being opened to reality? Who's still willfully blind? Who's rising to the occasion and who's falling short? Now, I want to know what you think. Is Nick as irredeemable now as I think he is? Is Lydia heading into her revolutionary redemption arc? Will Serena's eyes finally be opened by the end, and could she still join the rebellion? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and until next time, keep on deep diving, and let's see what we can uncover together.